Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Way the World Works. It is winter time, my least favorite time of the year because I'm not a big snow person. I'm kind of an indoor girl, if you will. I like being inside with a cup of hot cocoa when it snows and not out in the snow. In fact, fun little trivia about me. I grew up in Utah where it snows, and I have never skied or snowboarded. I think maybe I built a snowman once, but all this to say, it's winter, it's cold, there are snowstorms. And one very interesting thing that we see during snowstorms are, or right before snowstorms, are stores running out of bread and milk. Why does this happen? Well, as always, I think it's fun to look at these real world events and to show you what economic lessons we can learn out of them. So let's talk about it. Why does everybody suddenly buy all the bread and milk when it snows? And why do stores empty out right before a big storm without fail? I hope you guys have not had to experience this, but maybe if your parents have taken you to the store the night before you hear of a snowstorm, I want you to kind of picture this. If you haven't, picture this in your head. Like you are going through this store. If you're like me, you go to Trader Joe's, which they're always very, very small and always very packed, even if there isn't a storm. But you're walking through the grocery store. It's the night before a blizzard. Maybe it's Costco, which also gets crazy. And shelves are empty. Carts are overflowing. People seem kind of flustered. Like there's this scarcity mindset. Everyone's like, it's the end of the world, even though they have snowstorms every single year. But is something going wrong? Or is this actually how markets are supposed to work? How should we view this phenomenon? So in this episode, we're going to explore the economics behind snowstorm shopping sprees and why people rush to buy food and water and supplies before a big winter storm. And it can feel frustrating and kind of scary if you're like, oh my goodness, is there an apocalypse I didn't hear about? Did everyone else get the memo? But I want to teach you that these shortages really are part of how supply and demand work. And these are all part of this market signals. And if you remember in another episode where I talked about toy frenzies during the holiday season, these this crazy influx of people going to the store and these crazes are actually little market signals, which are little floating messages is how I call them, that are it's kind of like a code telling the market what to do. It's this invisible hand. It's this thing that isn't the government. It's a natural process. So, okay, let's get down to it. A recap on what supply and demand means. So supply is how much of something stores have and how much of something people want. Now, stores usually get like weekly shipments. I know, again, I'm a big Trader Joe's fan. I think it's every Monday night Trader Joe's gets new stuff. And so I always try to go Tuesday. But if you go Monday night, you'll see like all the shipments being placed on the shelves. It's very exciting for Trader Joe's people like me. All my Instagram accounts I follow are like Trader Joe's accounts where they show you all the new items. I just love it. I don't know why. Who knows? But I love it. So, they only restock maybe once a week. So they don't have, I think we think like a grocery store, unlimited supply of food. No, they only get what ships to them on a certain schedule. So, okay. So under normal conditions, again, stores order predictable amounts. Trader Joe's knows to order this much of something every Monday because they won't sell enough and maybe they'll have to throw some of it away if they don't. So they order a certain amount and then people buy those predictable amounts, and they know this from research. They know this from what has happened before. But before a snowstorm, demand spikes and people want more of the basics, which is usually milk, bread, eggs, snacks. And they want that because they don't know when they're going to be able to go out again. So a lot of times you'll hear there's a snowstorm, and sometimes you'll get crazy amount of snow. The roads are closed. You can't go anywhere. And so people want to feel secure. They want to feel like they have food. They have things to get them through the snowstorm until plows can get to the roads or things can resolve themselves. And if you live in places like where I live in Virginia, we get snow, but we don't get as much as like Minnesota, places like that. And so even though we get these snowstorms a few times a year, every time it happens, people act like they've never been in snow before and like the world shuts down. So 2 inches of snow and the federal government, because the federal government is here, they're always like, snow day, we don't have to work, which shocking. So you're going to have these you're going to have these spikes in demand. But the problem is a lot of times we don't get word of a storm that far in advance. And so the supply is going to remain the same as it was before the storm happened, right? It's going to operate like a regular week in whatever given year it is. So the stores don't magically have extras in stock, okay? And so what does that result in? That results in empty shelves. Now, if you guys remember pandemic craze, this happened with toilet paper. People were so scared that toilet paper was going to run out, which is so funny. There's a whole psychological thing about that as also, but we won't get into that on this episode. But so they were running to the stores to get toilet paper, and the stores were not prepared for this because of all the things people thought were going to be the craze during the pandemic. Toilet paper was not one of them. And so you had this shortage, this national shortage that lasted quite a bit. So when we see empty store shelves, I think we think like, oh dear, something went wrong. Are we now a third world country? Is this, Venezuela? Do we now have things on the shelves? And that is not what's going on here. It means demand changed faster than supply could respond. And so now it's up to these players, these stores to make note of this and have the market, adjust if it's a long-term thing like the pandemic. But in snowstorms, it's kind of a one-off. So let's talk about scarcity. What is scarcity? If something is scarce, it means there isn't much of it or there is a fixed amount of it. So in this case, scarcity means there isn't enough to go around for everybody who wants things, right? That's just how it works. And sometimes it's not even that they didn't order enough. It's like, let's say this happened on a Sunday night, the night before Trader Joe's gets its new supply of things. Maybe delivery trucks now can't get through, so they can't help restock their shelves because roads are shut down and workers stay at home and, people are also buying more than a day's worth of food. They're buying maybe a week's worth of food because even though the world always reopens after a snowstorm, every now and then, like we had snowpocalypse or snowmageddon in DC area, like 15 years ago. And that got to people so much that they always think of that one bad snowstorm. And so I think it makes them overbuy because if you lived here, like there was a week we couldn't get out. And so they remember that one thing and they start being scared and they're buying all this stuff. So it's almost like if everyone was throwing a party on a big day and a pizza shop runs out, right? Like that actually happens on like Super Bowl Sunday sometimes. Or day before Thanksgiving, go to a grocery store and you'll notice that a lot of the essentials are sold out because everyone's doing the same thing at the same time. Okay, now let's talk about price signals, which we talked about again in the Toy Frenzy episode. And price signals, what is a price? It's telling you what you're willing to buy, what people are willing to spend, on a product. And when things are scarce, people tend to want to spend a little bit more because they would rather spend more and get it. So prices go up when things get scarce and prices go down when stores have plenty. Same thing as the Toy Frenzy. But this encourages people to buy only what they need, right? So if there's if there's a storm, water goes up, or like a natural disaster, the price of water will go up and people start crying for government regulation and price controls. But it's actually a way of controlling how much people buy without having to get the government involved. If you up the price, maybe people are only going to get 2 or 3 cases of water, and then somebody else is going to have the opportunity to get water before you run out. But if things are super cheap, you're going to stock up on everything, and maybe that's not going to be enough for somebody else. So it's this way to regulate the supply and what you have. It's a way to regulate how many people are buying things without having to get the government involved, which to me is the name of the game. That's like what you want. So price signals are actually a way to help us, not hurt us, which again is a better way because during the pandemic, there was like a chicken shortage at one point. And so there was like a rule you could only buy one thing of chicken. And I would have rather had them raise the price of the chicken and allowed me to get however many I wanted to get than limited how many I could get by keeping the price the same. So price signals are really important, and we're kind of trained to look at them badly, like how dare they charge this? But these are good. This makes the world and the market go round. All right, so when you see empty store shelves and you start panicking that maybe the zombies are coming for us, and they are not, don't worry. But let's look at it a different way. Empty shelves, it's just information. It's just these little floating messages that operate in the market, right? The storm is a new information. It's saying people are reacting to this threat of not being able to leave their house and they're buying more. And so stores are reacting by trying to restock quickly, and truck drivers react by trying to deliver before the snowstorm hits. So markets are basically just information sharing. It's millions of people taking that information and responding to it. And I love it. I think the market is so fun. And I say that as somebody who used to hate economics because, experts always taught me that I wasn't smart enough to understand. I think they want us to think we're not smart enough because then we don't need them to tell us what to buy and what prices to buy, because we figured that out on our own, you guys. Trade and all this existed long before governments. Really great tie-in. The Food Truck Fiasco Tuttleton's books really talks about this because they talk about how supply can get messed up when government interferes in things. And then that's just, to me, a really good example of this in action. So pick up that book if you haven't. But governments always let these crises, if you will, they use them to their advantage by saying, see, this is why you need us to regulate prices. See, this is why you need us to tell you how much you should keep on your shelves. And that's not the lesson here. The lesson here is that when something unexpected happens, like a snowstorm, markets will adjust, but they won't do it instantly because you have to have time to gather that information. You have to have time to respond to all the things going on. And so there's a lot of moving parts. It doesn't happen instantly. But I want you to think about this next time. Maybe you're going to the store right before Easter and you notice that the eggs are clearing, or they're cleared from the shelf, so there aren't a ton there. Or if you have ever gone to buy a Halloween costume like 2 days or even a week before Halloween, you'll notice that the worst costumes are left because everybody has already gotten them. So the demand is high. Turkeys before Thanksgiving, same thing. iPhones when they launch. I always have problems getting iPhones because you have to get there quickly. And people sometimes, I don't know if it's quite this way anymore because you can order online and ship to your house. People used to wait out, and line up and sleep out overnight around the block at Apple stores. I actually think that does still happen because people like to be the first person to get things. Again, toilet paper during COVID, perfect example. So let's remember here, when you see those empty store shelves, it's not something to be scared about. It's actually something to really marvel at because that is the market at work. And now the market gets to respond. I talk about the market like it's its own thing, and it kind of is. So really, really cool stuff. We love economics. It's not as hard as they want us to believe, but you have to let it do its thing. You have to just leave it alone. Laissez-faire means kind of like letting things roll, like just hands off. And that's why sometimes you'll hear the free market called laissez-faire. It's French. So I don't know why I said French with a British accent. Though, if you ever watch movies where it takes place anywhere else, they always have British accents, even if it's in like Spain or France, which always makes me laugh. So side note, that's your Brit random tangent of the day. We will wrap it up there. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast and share with your friends. And until next time, I will talk to you later.